So earlier this week, we discussed how the rebels founded Echo Base, their base of operations on Hoth, and sort of the build-up to the Battle of Hoth, how the rebels sort of established themselves on that planet, and how they used Hoth as a base of operations. And we're all familiar with the events of the Battle of Hoth, so I figured today we'd take a look at what happened to Hoth after the battle. And the interesting fact that often gets overlooked, that there actually was a second Battle of Hoth. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So, let me set the stage. The Rebel Alliance has just ultimately been defeated at defending their base on Hoth. Their forces have been forced to evacuate, and Imperial forces have taken control of the planet. Imperial forces, almost immediately following the evacuation of Rebel leadership and their sort of incursion into Echo Base, began a massive sweep of the battlefield, trying to pick up any Rebel stragglers, and they definitely found a few, although none of note. The Rebel Alliance did survive the Battle of Hoth, and those of significance did eventually make their way off the planet after Rebel scouting forces were sent back there to pick up any stragglers. A incredibly dangerous mission that I would love to see depicted on screen or in a game or even in a book at some point. But the point is that the battle was over, and like many battles in galactic history, after the battle's over, both factions just kind of left. The rebels moved on to their next base of operations, which ended up being the Rebel fleet, and the Empire moved on to attempting to hunt down that Rebel fleet after deciding that Hoth was of little value, leaving the planet completely abandoned. But news of the battle did spread quickly, so on came a small fleet of scavengers who wanted to pick clean the Imperial weapons of war left behind on that planet and sell their parts for profit. Very similar to what we see on Jakku at the time of The Force Awakens. As these scavengers operated across the planet, they slowly picked everything clean within the first year or so, and then once again dissipated into the ether, leaving Hoth, again, a barren ice ball with no real activity or significance on it. And it would stay that way until after the Battle of Endor, which honestly isn't that long after the Battle of Hoth, when you think about it. After the Battle of Endor, the Iron Blockade was established over the entire sector. That's where Bespin became that stronghold. I actually mentioned that a few weeks back when I was talking about Cloud City, how it became an Imperial stronghold after the death of the Emperor, when the Empire was trying to hold on to what resources they could. Well, as we see in Empire Strikes Back, Hoth and Bespin are very close together, so Hoth did end up getting caught up in that, and there actually was a minor battle fought on Hoth as Rebel assault forces attempted to take refuge on the frozen ice world, and Imperial loyalist forces attempted a counterattack, basically almost repeating the events of the first Battle of Hoth, where Imperial walkers and assault forces were pressed up against a small Rebel encampment, albeit quite a bit smaller of scale than the initial Battle of Hoth. This battle, like the first one, ultimately ended in a Rebel victory, with Imperial forces being repelled. This is, by the way, something that only appears in a mobile game, so take that for what you will. After that, though, Hoth once again disappears into obscurity, and as far as hard canon elements are concerned, that's it. Hoth is almost never mentioned again, and it likely became a historical footnote. In fact, there's one reference where they actually do refer to Hoth as a historical footnote and nothing more. But there is one kind of questionably canon short film that does reference Hoth. In 2018, a small short film was released sort of to demonstrate ray tracing as an animation concept that took place within the Star Wars universe, and depicted some First Order soldiers having a sort of dispute with Captain Phasma that ends up with them being reassigned to operations on Hoth, which does imply that First Order operations did extend to that frozen world during their conquest of the galaxy. Now, once again, there's questions as to whether or not this counts as canon. It was technically official Disney material, so some people would argue that it is, but it's never really been firmly established, so take that as a grain of salt. But I guess I would say, from a firmly canon standpoint, it's possible that the First Order did have operations on Hoth, although I will say, why? You know what I mean? Like, Hoth was significant because the rebels chose it because it was insignificant. After the rebels were evicted from there, any purpose for that, like holding that planet as a stronghold, went away. Especially as it neighbors Cloud City and Bespin, which is a strategic resource that absolutely could be of value to any galactic government or large military, as I mentioned in my Cloud City video. But Hoth itself has almost nothing to offer other than its own obscurity, so I don't really see why the First Order would want to operate there, especially since they don't seem to really do much in secret, and that they do in secret, they do in the Outer Rim. So, all that to say, after the end of the Galactic Civil War and that very minor second battle of Hoth, the planet disappears from the galactic spotlight and is almost never mentioned again. Ultimately, Hoth's real claim to fame was that Battle of Hoth, and it being the home of Echo Base, a key Rebel installation in the days following, or I guess the years following, the Battle of Yavin. If you'd like to learn about how the Rebels came to establish Echo Base on Hoth, and why they picked this frozen wasteland as their new home, I'll leave a link up here to my video on that. And I'd like you to let me know down in the comments if you were living in the Star Wars universe, and, interested in the history of the Star Wars universe, would you venture all the way out to Hoth and visit that frozen ice world? Or is it really just a historical footnote, one of the many battles of the Galactic Civil War, and one that's particularly difficult to get to, so not really worth the time? And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in Star Wars or anywhere else in science fiction, you can let me know down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.